Well, I want to add my thanks to being on the docket tonight, reading these wonderful writers. I'm going to read, well, I guess the good news is I'm going to read one poem. Disquieting news is that it's 10 minutes long. That means I expect some wandering. I'm not allowed to wander. But who knows? Let's see. Can you hear me all right? All the way to that? It's called History. When I met the famous Felix Dzerzhinsky, he was a passenger ship and wore a stiff, riveted smile as he rolled gracefully over the eastern Pacific's long, cold swells. His head was square like a stern, while his pigeon-toed feet formed a bow, and his eyes, shaped like anchors, moved up and down on chains. You don't get made into a ship for being a nice man. You don't become a statue in Lubyanka Square without some organized terror. How else to build a reputation? Lay the keel. On a ship named for such a person, there might be a man in his 60s, bald, with a limp, dressed in tweeds, accompanied by a younger, much taller, elegant Japanese woman, a man with a name that's hard to forget, who knows ancient Greek and Latin, speaks French, Italian, Spanish, Japanese, his native German, not to mention English, in which you converse. What makes him think the ship will never reach port, that he can say the things he says about Russians and Jews? Or that he can get through customs without opening his big leather bag right next to you with its spare limb? A chessboard was painted on Dzerzhinsky's back, sand-weighted pieces as tall as 5 feet, and easy to move into position. But the passage was rough through the strait of Tsugaru. Rooks, knights, bishops, queens, and kings fell down and rolled on their pedestals like tops, while pawns upright slid around. Who knows the fate of the USSR Felix Dzerzhinsky? Perhaps it's a casino aground on the Aral Sea, or like his socialist realism sculpture toppled by a crane. How bad could he have been? I only knew him as a ship. We parted after crossing Tokyo Bay under a bright sun, although it was night in Yokohama when we arrived. Wharf lights and cranes glared and hovered, and the tugs that accompanied us nudged Dzerzhinsky in place. Between hull and pier, the lap of water was only an expected sound, not a way of listening to the incessant future, shuffling between the present and the past, trapped in a narrow channel too small for the ship I myself might be. What kind of man travels the world with an extra leg? When we said goodbye, he gave me his calling card. Dr. Otto Karl Schmidt, Osterwalster 48D 8000, München 40, telephone 0894-522-063. And a folded piece of paper on which he'd written a request. I've saved the Christmas card he sent in thanks. On the front is a painting by Hugo Koenig, Mein Turmer von St. Peter, a 19th century scene. 2 young girls, sisters I suppose, stand behind a head-high ironwork rail on a balcony. The older sister wears gloves and holds onto the rail with one hand, standing on half tiptoe, looking down. a city snowscape with steep pitched roofs and 2 church bell towers, above which a flock of almost indistinct crows circles. The younger sister, blonde curls escaping from her winter bonnet, looks into the sky away from the city, or perhaps at a spire that rises behind them. Unlike her sister, she wears a woolen jacket, and as if dizzy from looking up so long, her ungloved left hand grips her sister's jumper. The grip is tight because pointed painted gathers on the fabric. The scene must be so famous, most Germans, especially of a given age, would know exactly what draws the younger girl's attention. Yes, St. Peter's Tower, and the towers across the way, patrolled by crows, the venerable Frauenkirche. Inside, a printed salutation reads, Freie Weihnachten und ein gutes Neujahr, followed in a tight, neat hand. Wishes you, dear Michael, your transide companion, Otto Karl. And, indeed, you did me an enormous favor by digging up again Krivitsky's Why Stalin Shot His Generals. And I have been fascinated to read it over again, 40 years later. Then I had shown it to Ambassador Ott in Tokyo because I thought it was the truth. The German ambassador did not believe in it. Now I know I was right. W. Krivitsky, alias Samuel Ginsburg, a GPU general, sought asylum first in France. Having escaped there 2 attempts on his life, he retreated to Washington, where he was found shot in a hotel on 10th February 1941, 2 years after that article. I would have sent parts 2 and 3 of Krivitsky's article if his Christmas card had not included the Xerox of an excerpt from Hog Island and Other Essays by James J. Martin, a Holocaust denier. Even so, the decent thing to do was to carry out his favor. And yet how hard would it have been for him to track down Krivitsky? The articles ran in the Saturday Evening Post, and Stalin's ruthlessness he'd already detailed, along with Hitler's opening of the Eastern Front to save Europe from the Bolsheviks. Never mind wolf packs off the coast of the Americas, nor his escape from Dachau, where he was confined after the war. This man, whose motto was Veritas est magna et prevaligit, and spent his retirement defending fascists like Leon Degrelle and publishing a book, Pearl Harbor in New York City. When I met the famous Felix Dzerzhinsky, he was a ship on the cover of an in-tourist brochure, and not the one I sailed from Siberia to Japan. The ship I sailed, the USSR Baikal, was a lake. And how a lake could be a ship, I don't understand. And I don't understand Michael Collier, then or now, who loves the idea that truth is great. He'll never be a ship or a lake. He'll never have a cable cinched round his neck. Never, never, never pulled head to pedestal to the ground and cut up for scrap. When he traveled the world in 1977, what was he thinking? He wasn't. He was dreaming, like he is now, waking and sleeping, watching himself throw Romanian lei from the window of the train approaching the Russian border. He had more of it than he could account for and was afraid. Before I met the USSR by car, I took a train from Bucharest to Moscow, and from there to Nakhodka, Russia's Pacific port for foreigners. In soft class, the car's conductor brought us tea, morning and afternoon, in glass cups with metal handles, sugar cubes, and sweet crackers. That's all the comfort he'd been trained to give. Otherwise, he hectored us with gestures and disdained anyone who boarded after Moscow. One night, he beckoned me in his compartment. I knew 4 Russian words: thank you, yes, no, and closed. Everything was closed in that vast country, meaning broken. Zagruta is what it sounded like. And that night, after many thimbles of vodka, I learned the word for what it means to embrace the opposite of what you hate, even if in essence it's just the same. Hard to show is what I heard, as he gave thumbs up to Pinochet, Davidoff, and Franco, and also nodding to the corridor where the man and his tall companion stood. He repeated a word I didn't understand until he took my pen and drew a swastika on his skin. Thank you.